And their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the Threat to American Democracy. And Tom, we'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy? I can't wait to find out. Welcome back to the JP Reacts channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friends, where we like to call it the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants and Satan, shine the light of awareness on woke absurdities, and highlight the amazing work of other freedom fighters. This just in, white rural voters are a threat to democracy. Why is that? One, we absolutely have to make everything about race, okay? So if we do enough racial division, we'll have racism everywhere. We won't call it as such. And that will help us uphold a democracy that's really looking like communism. So these two authors, what the hell are their names? Tom Schaller and Paul Waldman wrote a book together, White Rural Rage. These people saying like, white rural voters, they're a threat to democracy. Look at them. They're two white guys. Those white people are horrible. Take it from us. We're two white guys. You should listen to us. Anyway, we'll hear what they have to say. But after that, I'm going to show you what one of the most intelligent humans I've ever heard has to say about this white rural rage kind of thing.
I think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all,
fourfold interconnected thread. We want to sound intelligent while we give you unintelligent ideas.
Well, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this. So we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most
It's never been an inaccurate poll, so appreciate those receipts.
Racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism.
Okay, so that's saying if you deny the COVID narrative, then you are in this nut job group. Guilty of that.
Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're
really an independent press. My experience of rural people is they believe in independent press, and they are pissed off that we barely have that anymore. Certainly not on MSNBC.
They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So
they're most susceptible to violence rather than peaceful public discord. Man, I remember those like only in the city riots, peaceful protests around BLM. I wonder, I didn't see any of that in rural areas. I am unfortunately trusting the senses of my own eyes and ears once again. Let me betray the evidence of my eyes and ears, because I need to do that to believe these guys.
negative factors about this demographic. Tom, what else do they have in common?
He's a good speaker.
I think that what really matters.
So he's so far Kamala Harris and Joe Biden if they had a baby. He's not saying anything yet.
I mean, what makes them vulnerable?
So she's like, I'm going to interrupt you. You're such an idiot.
Oh, well, a lot of that has to do with, as a starting point, the problems that rural America has, which are very real and very profound. Mm-hmm. They have the more problematic education systems. They have.
Wow. It took them about 20 minutes to say rural America has problematic education systems. You need to get your kids out of rural public schools and get them into the public schools in the cities, where they can learn that they can be any gender they want. So they can learn our critical race theory. Get them into the public schools in cities, because there's problems in those rural schools that still say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Have poor infrastructure. They've had a lack of economic opportunity. We've seen a lot of manufacturing.
These two guys look like they do some chest feeding.
Jobs leave from rural areas. And that kind of left them open to someone like Donald Trump, who would come along and tell them something that was true, that there is a system that has not served them well.
That would be true.
He said
they're pissed off.
They are pissed off, and they have some reason to be with both parties. The trouble is that what Donald Trump gave them was not something that was actually going to fix those.
By the way, that last scene, there's racist Trump on stage with the black man. That's how racist he is. He was honoring a black man on stage.
Problems, but was just a kind of a way to channel their rage and anger. And, you know, we've been told for so long, especially Democrats have been told, that in order to get rural voters, to get them to listen to you, you have to go there, you have to really empathize with them, you have to show them that you understand their lives.
Show them that you care? Yeah, that you probably have to do that with rural voters, and probably voters anywhere.
You have to, you know, put on a Carhartt jacket and go down to somebody's farm.
Have a beer.
And yeah.
As opposed to showing up there with blue hair and women's clothes when you're a man. Yeah, you probably do that with rural people.
Maybe milk a cow.
Yes.
And it turned out that none of
they make their own food, those idiots. We go to the supermarket that makes our food. They take self-responsibility, and that is rural rage.
of that was true.
No.
When Donald Trump came along, he didn't do any of that stuff. He was just a conduit for their rage, their anger, their resentment.
Yeah, a lot of Trump rallies in rural areas.
And that turned out to be what they wanted. And it wasn't really about the material conditions of their lives, because he didn't improve their lives, but he got more support in rural areas in 2020 than he had in 2016, despite the fact that none of their problems had gotten any better under him. All that he gave them was a way to essentially give a big middle finger to Democrats, to people who live in cities, and to the rest of the country.
Isn't he?
So I can say that's true. I live here in rural Texas, and under Biden, things have gotten better. I mean, just seeing illegal immigrants. Yep, I see an illegal immigrant killing my neighbor right now. But, you know, I think that's an improvement over Trump, because under Biden, I get to, that white rural neighbor of mine is getting killed by an illegal immigrant right now. And I think that's progress.
Isn't he more than a conduit to their rage? Isn't he also a symbol of their aspirations to an extent?
They are, but what are their aspirations? As we write in the book,
rich.
I guess.
The rural people aspire to be rich. Like a lot of people aspire to be rich.
Yes, but they're not getting there, right? Poverty is soaring in between 20.
And why aren't they seeing that?
I think this is the disconnect, right? They'd rather channel their rage. I think what a lot of rural white Americans have decided is that their economic fortunes are decided by globalization and, frankly, late-stage capitalism, which is eating up all the mom-and-pop stores and taking away, you know, the extractive industries and coal and farming and so forth. So they might as well vote on their cultural issues. They might as well vote on God, gun, and religion, because they feel like neither.
I think God, gun, and religion, that's a pretty good basis to be voting.
Their party is going to deliver any material benefit. They're not going to reverse the closure of rural pharmacies and rural hospitals and rural healthcare treatment facilities, which are now disappearing, not because of communism and not because of socialism, but because of capitalism, right?
There's a lot of socialism and communism infiltrating our country. Fact check, Tom.
Rural pharmacies and hospitals are closing because they're not money makers, and unless they're part of a regional chain, they're disappearing. So Trump comes in and says, let's just hate on cities. Let's just hate on minorities. Let's hate on immigrants. And at least they can deliver on that. And so they're not even voting in their material interests anymore. And that's causing a further decay and decline of rural communities.
I like how Trump has black gloves on there. Kind of looks like a hitman.
Right. Reverend Al, guys, has a question for you. Rev?
Tom, wouldn't you also say that it is in the interest of those like Donald Trump to put the blame on people who are likely to be going through the same kinds of challenges in maybe a different part of the country, like blacks, like browns, like migrants?
We got to make this more about race, ladies and gentlemen.
He channels this rage that they rightfully have in rural areas toward the wrong people, and those that could do something about it escape without having to make change, because if those rural...
This is a very leading question. These two, like, white dudes who are racist against white people. Is a black man asking them this question. Do you think they're going to say anything other than agreeing with the black man's question that is so leading and winding they can't even understand it anymore? Let's wait and find out.
Blacks and migrants and browns came together they could really force real change. Isn't it a diversion to the wrong people based on their inherent racism and xenophobia?
Absolutely, Reverend Al.
As a white man, I agree with everything you'll ever say.
And as you probably know, 24% of rural America is non-white now. And we have had 8 years.
Whoa! How could that be? 24%. Are they a threat to democracy? We got to make this about race, everybody.
Since Trump came down the escalator in June 2015.
We hate rural people, except that 24% that still votes like all rural people. They're good, but they might be black, but they're probably white supremacists like Larry Elder is.
Focusing on rural whites, the heartland flyover people, and what their economic anxieties are. But with the exception of 2 things that we can find, opioid deaths and gun deaths, on every other measure in rural America, rural Latinos, rural African Americans, and rural Native Americans, the most rural population in America, are doing worse. And nobody cares about their economic anxieties. And one of the things we argue for...
I don't know if that's true. So nobody cares about their economic anxieties. I doubt that's true. I care. I'm sitting here, I'm feeling my care right now, Tom.
And Paul argues eloquently in our concluding chapter, is that if rural America really wants to revive itself, they need to build a pan-racial, white, non-white coalition in rural America. But there doesn't seem to be any effort whatsoever among white rural Americans to do that.
Wow. Now, we have a whole chapter about non-white rural Americans because they're a population that totally gets ignored. You know, we spent...
We hate rural Americans. And again, we're going to make this about race. All the rural Americans who aren't white, like we love them.
A couple of years after Donald Trump got elected, journalists went to every single diner in Middle America to try to talk to red-hatted MAGA folks about what concerned them, what they were mad about. Nobody went to the rural African Americans, rural Latinos, rural Native Americans to find out what they're mad about.
Then why didn't these 2 guys go to those places? Seems like they don't care.
And they have every reason to be mad, but you know what they're not doing? They're not overrunning the Capitol. They're not going down to their state capital carrying.
As long as we don't release the video footage, definitely overrun the Capitol.
AR-15s.
It's so
they
confusing
have,
to me.
And nobody treats them the way we do white rural Americans, as though.
Isn't that just a beautiful scene? 3 white people gathered around the table being racist against white people. Just the hypocrisy. Like, if they're going to do that, like, cool. Like, if you're white and you're racist against white people, it's fine. You make up your own mind what you want to believe. But you need to sit there and, like, criticize yourself, not, like, those white people. You need to be like, I'm a bad person because I'm white. I was a white baby, and apparently I was born racist.
We have a moral obligation to know what they're angry about and to cater to them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, the book is White Rural Rage. You can find out more in it. The Threat to American Democracy. Authors Tom Schaller and Paul Waldman. Thank you both very much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Tom and Paul. Thank you guys very much for your contributions. It's a threat to democracy. I just want to take this time to remind you what Orwellian doublespeak is. It's saying the opposite as though it's true. It's accusing someone else of what you are doing. It's like firefighters arrive on the scene, burning house. And it's like accusing the firefighters of being the arsons. There you have the arsons pointing their fingers at the firefighters. They are setting fires. Seems stupidly obvious. Now, I don't like racism at all against anybody, and I'll call it out. Now, one of the most intelligent people I've ever heard is a man named Eric Weinstein. And most recently, I listened to an episode on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, with Eric Weinstein. He's a highly intelligent human being. And he and Chris were in a conversation, the segment of the conversation, they were talking about toxic compassion. Now, part of the toxic compassion is we are so caring about everybody, except we have to channel our rage against these white men because we're so caring about everybody else. They act like they care, but I would dare say what they're doing, it's not caring whatsoever. Let's take a look.
There's a point about sanctimony and appearing to do good while doing evil.
Appearing to be doing good while doing evil. I judge books by the cover when they're in print form. White Rural Rage appears to be doing good while it's doing evil. I think it qualifies as that.
That is different from the need to parent and protect. part of what's going on is a redistribution of empathy, which is being called an expansion of empathy, right? So the idea is we are going to be extra specially sympathetic with some groups and empathic with their trauma, their pain.
Everybody but non-white males.
And we are going to take away compassion from other groups. So, for example, if you look at suicide statistics in the United States, from all of the rhetoric, you would think that young Black Asian females would be at the top of the suicide statistics, but it's really middle-aged white men who are killing themselves in incredible numbers. And you bring up the statistic. There's an exchange rate in terms of human misery that is measured in suicide. It's a pretty unfudgeable thing that when you kill yourself, you're probably in an extremely negative state of personal trauma.
And true compassion would care about those people who are in an extremely negative emotional state.
So what does the compassion group think about the fact that the group most likely to end their own lives is exactly the group that is faulted, for the patriarchy? It's astounding.
I would dare say it is astounding. By the way, I highly recommend listening to that whole episode of Modern Wisdom with Eric Weinstein. But for now, my beautiful freedom-loving friends, I want you to channel your rural white rage into hitting the subscribe button if you haven't already. I appreciate you watching this video. I'll look forward to seeing you on our next one. But first, here's a special message, not brought to you by racism or anti-racism, because that's the same thing. It's brought to you by good folks. This used to be a cow. And this is the infrared sauna blanket made by Bon Charge. Bon Charge is a holistic wellness company with a huge range of evidence-based products to help you optimize your life in every way. It's founded in science and based on nature. And the infrared sauna blanket is one of my favorite Bon Charge products. Maybe you've been wanting to burn calories to control your weight and improve your body shape. Or you've been wanting to detoxify yourself because you happen to live in a world filled with toxins. Or you've been wanting to de-stress yourself and sleep better because you're stressed out all the time. Well, my friend, look no further than the infrared sauna blanket. Improve your body shape. Well, the sauna blanket works by elevating your heart rate to that of physical exercise. You can burn up to 600 calories per session while you relax. Detoxification note, sweating helps flush your body of heavy metals and other toxins, like toxic relationships. And the infrared heat helps give your body a beneficial endorphin release so you feel better and more relaxed. Now, when it comes to getting the benefits of sauna, here's why I like the infrared sauna blanket the best. It's easy to set up. It takes less than a minute, and it doesn't take up a bunch of valuable space and clutter up your home. And it's the most affordable infrared sauna system on the market. I use mine 3 or 4 times a week for 30-minute sessions. Since I've been using it, I find I feel more relaxed, I sleep better, I have more energy, and if I didn't know any better, it's improving my body shape. If you want to treat yourself to the best, get your infrared sauna blanket at boncharge.com/JPReacts. And while you're there, be sure to use the discount code JPReacts for 15% off all Bon Charge products. Enjoy.